Welcome to episode 39 of the Blood Brothers podcast. Tonight, Sean Coleman is not here. He's feeling a bit under the weather, but I am joined as ever by Rob Parker.
Hello and get well, Sean.
Lovely. And in our guest spot tonight, we are very, very lucky to have probably the coolest, well, the owner of the coolest proof of 2020, Alex Pavesi. How are you?
Hi, it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
We should say what that proof was, of course. 8 detectives, absolutely massive. Sought after proofs. You must be delighted when you saw that.
Yeah, so the proof is in a slipcase. So it's in a kind of cardboard box and it slides out. And the slipcase has holes in the front that line up with the images on the front of the book, which is quite similar to the dust jacket on the hardback. So the thing about that proof was because obviously it's a bit more expensive to do that, they made a very limited number. So I've only got one. So they're extremely rare. And then the plan was to make a sort of a secondary proof. I hope I'm not giving away any secret business information by saying this. The plan was to make a secondary proof. It was going to go out in larger numbers, but then that was a plan brewing at the sort of start of March. So everything was swiftly reevaluated a few weeks later, and it never happened. So that's the only UK proof, and they're like gold dust. Yeah, very rare. It's the US proof. I've got sort of 25 sitting on a shelf behind me. The UK one, I've only got one. So, yeah.
Well, the US proof will have its alternate title as well, won't it? The 8th detective.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the US proof is identical almost to the hardback, just in paperback form. Which is nice because it's portable, nice. So I go anywhere and I need to take a copy. That's quite handy to have 25 of those.
Very cool.
Nice. Please, could you tell us a little bit about 8 Detectives?
Yeah, 8 Detectives, I'd like to say, is a crime novel about a author of crime novels. He's called Grant McAllister. Crime stories, I should say. They're not novels. So he's called Grant McAllister. And he's a man elderly in his years. And when he was young, he wrote a series of crime stories. And the way they'd come about is he was a professor of maths at the time, and he tried to sort of sit down and work out semi-mathematically all of the different variations on the murder mystery genre. And then he wrote a story to illustrate each one. And now it's roughly 30 years later. An editor called Julia is visiting him on the Mediterranean island where he now lives as a recluse. And she's there to talk about republishing his collection of stories. So the book features their conversations and reproduces the stories within the text. And she soon starts to realize that there might be something related between the stories and some secrets in his previous life. And she starts to wonder why exactly he's living as a recluse on an island now and what his story is.
Outstanding.
That was cracking. Well done. I loved it last year. I was lucky to get... Yeah, very good. I was lucky to get my hands on a proof, and Kate very kindly sent me one. Yeah, she got 2, and I managed.
Oh wow!
She was very kind.
More than me.
I thought it was great. It was just like the most original. It has to be the most original thing of 20. Well, aside from COVID, that was pretty original. But the book. I mean, I'd never read anything like it really. So my first question was, what are your inspirations? Like, how did that story come to you?
I mean, yeah, it has plenty of inspirations, and I guess there are other things that are quite similar. They're just not really from within the crime genre. So, I mean, 2 kind of things that I've always loved ever since I started reading when I was in my late teens are crime fiction. And, you know, it was like Sherlock Holmes and G.K. Chesterton stories that got me into reading at all, really, and Agatha Christie. And then the other thing I've always loved is like just weird storytelling, anything that tells a story in a slightly unusual way. And I guess even before I was reading a lot of books, I sort of liked that in films. And, I was a huge Quentin Tarantino fan during the 90s, and still am, I guess. And, if you look at Pulp Fiction and things like that, those are really weird ways of telling stories. Pulp Fiction is like a jigsaw puzzle, and the viewers left to put it all together in their own head. And yet it's a mainstream, like, massive Hollywood movie that was huge at the time. I've always really loved that kind of thing. So when I started reading books a lot, and I realized that there are some books that are written like that, I started tracking down those. Most of, I guess I'm thinking of things that were mostly written in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. There was a sort of movement of experimentation. Things like The French Lieutenant's Woman, which I won't say what's weird about that because it's potentially a spoiler, but it's got some tricks up its sleeve. Although, despite on the surface being sort of a Victorian historical novel, it goes very strange at some point. There's a book called If on a Winter's Night, a Traveller, which is a very direct reference for Eight Detectives, because that also has sections of other books embedded within a kind of wider narrative. But I hadn't seen anyone really do this with crime fiction. There's the American author Paul Auster, who does books that kind of start off as crime fiction and read like sort of American noir, and then at some point they get very weird and start going kind of philosophical, but they never end up being anything that you could really call crime fiction because they don't solve any of the mysteries. And people will tell me that's the point, I guess, but it's also quite dissatisfying to read. So I wanted to do something that had that kind of flavor, but actually worked as a crime novel and actually went somewhere that was hopefully a satisfying resolution of all its kind of unusual structures.
I love the idea that this that's such a bold undertaking from the outset. Right, I want to write a story like that. And this is possibly not a normal question, but did what you set out to do, in your mind, did you achieve it? It's such an incredible thing to try to attempt. Did you, in your head, did you pull it off? I would say that the wider reading public believes you did pull it off, but in your head, with what you tried to pull off, did you pull it off for you?
Yeah, that is a hard question. Like, to be honest, the one thing I actually wanted to achieve was just to start a novel and finish it, because I was in my mid-30s at this point. I'd been writing on and off since I was, 18, and I'd started lots of things and never finished them. So in that respect, yeah, totally. I finished it and it's published, so that's great. But yeah, in terms of kind of how I was envisioning the novel, that's hard to answer, just because I was kind of working it out as I went along. I didn't really have a kind of vision for what I wanted to do. I did want to do a crime novel with an unusual structure that sort of played around with storytelling. So yeah, I guess undeniably that's what it is. But I didn't have a kind of. A lot of it was worked out as I went along. I didn't have like a vision that I started with. Like Grant's sort of theories that led him to kind of work out all these different stories that are like meant to be kind of all the different variations on the structure. I worked out Grant's theories pretty much after I'd written the stories, so I had to like work backwards there and sort of come up with, okay, so I've had all these ideas for like different types of crime story you can do. Is there a kind of semi-mathematical idea that kind of connects them and draws a line through all of them? And then I came up with that afterwards, which did involve going back and changing some things. But yeah, I didn't really start with the kind of the vision and then attempt to write it. I was making up the vision as I went along, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
That's very cool. Wow. I like that. Chris, we talk about this all the time, about the different ways of approaching your writing. And I said, as a all my life and career to date, I've always been a pantser. But I sent Chris a message this morning where I've plotted my latest.
Oh wow!
Oh, you've had a busy day.
Yeah, I've just been every couple of minutes sneaking away to do a little bit more. Like, all right, that's got to go there, because and it's because I'm a little bit lost and time's running out and I need help. So, that's why that's happening. So it's very interesting to hear that a novel as complex as Eight Detectives, a lot of it was sort of done on the fly, almost.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Eight Detectives is it's because it's got the stories inside the main story, and in terms of just the word count, they take up quite a lot of it. So they're like those bits I could write as if I was writing a short story collection, which I'm not going to say is easier than writing a novel, although I kind of probably think it is, in terms of at least how much you need to keep in your head at any one time. But like, if you can work on one story and then put it to one side and just forget about it for 6 months, that's great. I find it much harder. My second novel is that I'm currently writing it's kind of one long linear story, and I mean, whenever I change something near the start of that, I've got to go back and change the whole novel. I find that, to me, that's much harder. Like making everything fit when it's running through the whole thing. That's a nightmare. So yeah, I mean, pros and cons with Eight Detectives. Like, at least writing a first draft was really kind of straightforward. I just sort of treated it almost like a short story collection, thinking the whole time how I would link everything together. It wasn't kind of completely an afterthought. It was definitely there from the start, but I just didn't focus on it until the end. And then the end was a nightmare, but that was sort of, I don't know, 2 or 3 months of complete stress, and I used up all my paid leave from my job, and I went away to a cottage in the middle of nowhere, and etc. etc. But I got there in the end.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Too mad.
Yeah. The whole plunger versus pantser thing. No, wait, what is it? Planner versus pantser. Is that what we're going with?
Yeah, yeah. There's loads of different terms, but yeah.
Right. That's I don't even know where I fall on that. I don't know. I'm going to say that's a spectrum, and I don't know where I fall on it, because I always have a plan, but I change the plan all the time. So I don't know.
I think when I'm looking at this thing, because what the listeners won't have seen then is I just held up a cork board with loads of little notes written on it, which is the most I've ever planned anything. And I'm looking at it now, and I'm already thinking like, well, that's got to go, that's got to change, that's got to change. So I think it'll be something to get me started. And anything that gets you started and gets the words going. I mean, for some people it'll be a cork bird. For other people it will be 4 shots of tequila. I don't know. Whatever gets you writing and gets that process going, I think is the right thing to do for you. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
With like, we've had some guests on that have written. Unusual is not the right word, but not the straight linear like you were talking about. And they were saying when they've met with like agents and stuff, they've sort of been advised to write it straight. Did you have any sort of feedback like that? Trying something like you did. Did anybody sort of poo-poo it?
I mean, they probably did behind my back. I mean, so I'll tell you, like, I mean, so when I was writing this, and I mean this completely honestly, it's not like false modesty. I really didn't think it would get published because the structure was too weird. And like, one thing that you will find if you ever look at any writing advice, one thing you will find is that don't bother with short stories, or at least a collection of short stories, to try and publish as a book if you're not famous already. They don't sell, and no one will take that. This is what you're told. And obviously, this is a novel. It's not a short story collection, but it has short stories in it. And I was expecting everyone to say this is just sort of has too much in common with a short story collection for anyone to want to publish it. So I mean, I was really writing it just because I wanted to finish something. As I say, like, it wasn't easy to write, but it was easy to get going with because of the whole kind of self-contained nature of the different parts. and I just really wanted to finish it. And I wasn't thinking about publication. I was thinking it would be good practice, and then maybe the one after I could get published or something. But when I finished it, I obviously wanted to send it to some people because I wanted to kind of, if I was imagining it as like a dress rehearsal for the next book, I wanted to actually go through the whole process and get into the habit of writing pitch letters to agents and being rejected and seeing what happens. But then, I mean, the response totally took me by surprise. And I mean, I kind of, my journey to publication story is extremely lucky and not very interesting, because I sent it to 7 agents, I think, and one of those really liked it, and he had no, so that's my agent currently, it's James Wills. He had no, I mean, he liked the structure. He thought it was very original. And no, we never had that conversation. I mean, I was expecting it, and then I met my editors, and after they acquired the book, it kind of terrifies me how the whole thing of acquisition and publishing works, because they sort of they make you an offer and you agree a deal, and then they tell you what you want, what they want you to change, right? And the editing process, and it's always sort of a two-way thing. It's never dictatorial, I don't think. Change this, change this, change this. But you could in theory find out that they've acquired your book, and then you get there and they're sort of saying, yeah, we kind of imagined it being, can you put the chapters in a different order or something? And potentially a very awkward conversation. But no, I was kind of expecting something like that. I was expecting to be asked to change some things, make it a bit more kind of accessible for the general reader. But no, we never even had a conversation about it. Everyone was completely on board, which is very lucky.
Oh, that's cool.
That's incredible. Could I ask about your? I mean, I know you just mentioned your journey to publication, but I mean, your career prior to this, or I suppose the direction of your professional life before this, was a lot different, wasn't it? Is it a maths to PhD level?
Yeah, growing up, I mean, it's probably true that I always wanted to be a writer, but I never saw it as an option. Everyone described it as kind of like a lottery win, so I never thought it was actually viable. So my quote unquote more realistic ambition was to be a maths professor. So I studied maths at uni, and then I did a master's in Manchester, in fact. And then I did my PhD at UEA, and this was all with the ambition of eventually working in a university, doing research in maths full time. But it turns out, I mean, that's actually much harder to do, in my experience, than to be a professional author. Which is not so hard to believe when you think about it. When you think, basically every city in the UK has basically one university. Some have 2, or London has a bunch more than that. But on average, you're looking at 1 or 2. Some of the smaller universities don't even have maths departments. And each of the ones that do has about 30 permanent members of staff. So there are basically just no jobs in academia, in maths at least. And I finished my PhD in 2011, so deep in the global recession, and that hit academia pretty hard, and no one was hiring. So yeah, I mean, that was my plan, and I spent 8 years at university working towards that, and then really found that it was almost impossible to get a job.
Wow.
And I think it maybe could have got something if I'd been really persistent and willing to live anywhere in any country that would have me, sort of thing. But after looking at that, I just thought, oh, it's not worth it. I'll just find a different job. So then I ended up as a programmer working in software for the last 7 years or so, which was quite a shift from. I mean, it's related to maths, but it's not the same thing. So I had to kind of learn. I'd always been pretty much a Luddite, and I had to learn quite a lot about computers quite quickly. I moved to London started that career. And then it was only really when that settled down that I found I had time to write in the evenings and stuff, and on my lunch break. And then that worked out, and I should have just done that all along and not bothered with the math. But
that's amazing. I love the journeys that writers go through to get where they are. I just find it amazing, especially someone who had like this must be said. I mean, it's a glittering debut. This, Alex, it's just like it's outstanding. So and what it's achieved in the space of time that it's been in the sort of in the public reading space, it's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Is it the paperback? Is it out in March, April time?
Yeah, yes. The date is not actually set, but it will be around April. It'll take a month, 2 months, maybe.
Yeah, cool. We'll have to look out for it. What I was wondering when I was reading it, I like sort of both sides of it because I really enjoyed the short stories, and I was trying to work out as I went along. When I figured there were little things in it, I was trying to work them out, and then I really loved the spending the time with Grant and Julia. What I was wondering when you were doing it is, did you try to write the short stories in a different voice almost, or did you just write it as you? Is that a weird question? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So it's interesting. So as I said, my fear with this book was that people would just say, "Oh, it's a short story collection with a kind of linking narrative." So I tried really hard. That was kind of the main thing I was like trying to combat with most of the decisions I made was to make it feel like more like a novel. And one thing I thought would be a way of doing that was to give the stories themselves quite a distinctive voice, so that they all felt like, so that they didn't feel like just a bunch of short stories. They actually felt like they were kind of revisiting the mind of the same author and his same worldview and sense of humor is kind of in all the stories. So I would say it's not written how I will write my second book. It's slightly more, I don't know, slightly more weird, slightly more surreal in moments, maybe. And I just thought it was a great excuse to kind of have a bit of fun, maybe be a bit self-indulgent, which is maybe something that some people don't like about it. But it has a voice that is very much, slightly strange, I would say.
Yeah, I think you can tell when it's Grant and then when they're talking, it feels different. I thought it was just so well done. So yeah, my hat is off to you how you did it. It's just so good. You've mentioned book 2, which you're writing at the minute. Are we allowed to know anything about it? I can say no. Lou Burney said no.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's all going to change probably, so it's not finished yet. It's kind of it's a contemporary set thriller. I'd say it's influenced by David Lynch, and it's a kind of depiction of small town weirdness in the UK, in a small village, in a rural area. That's all. That's probably all I can say. That's not liable to change in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, we'll take that. That's very cool. That sounds cool. I think, Rob, are you muted, or is your mic?
I can't hear you, Rob.
Come back. We can keep going if you want, because I think it's still recording. So Rob, he can come back in.
Yeah.
Can you tell us? Oh, sorry, I'll just get my questions. We've had like some from Twitter, and I mean, this is the sort of a holy grail. What do you think is a formula for a great thriller? I mean, if you can answer that, you're going to be making a lot of people happy.
It's a nice, easy question. Yeah. I mean, I like in a thriller. What I look for is as much intrigue as possible, but only if then it's going to be answered satisfactorily at the end of the book. So my formula is maximum intrigue in the first half, maximum satisfaction in the second half. And that sounds kind of precise. Yeah, but actually doing that is pretty impossible. So it doesn't help with that.
I know. Yeah, I'm looking at my corkboard right now and going. Ah!
We were just talking about what makes a good thriller, Rob.
Yeah, no, I picked it. Forgive me.
That's all right.
Sometimes gremlins do whatever they need. But yeah, no, that I think I like that though. Intrigue first half, pay it off second half, essentially.
Yeah,
I do, because satisfaction in a book, I think, is so important.
Yeah,
and sort of the fulfilling nature of a read as well, you know. And we talked about this a few weeks ago. I don't really care about length as long as I feel like it's satisfying. You know, like and every question posed has been resolved to an extent where I feel satisfied as a reader. I don't always like to be spoon-fed though, so that probably is like as authors and readers, because we are both, aren't we, in a way? Well, exactly, very literally, we are both. We're probably very hard to please in that sense. But I don't want to be taken for an idiot, but at the same time, I do want resolution. I do want resolution to a point where I feel comfortable and happy.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how subjective everything is, even these sort of basic structural questions. Because I find when I read a book, if it's really good up to the end, and then the end's not that good, I mean, to me, it's hard for me to say, you know, oh, it's all right, I still enjoyed it. You know, maybe I did enjoy it, but like, it's hard for me to put that in the sort of top tier of books if it doesn't maintain the brilliance all the way to the end, especially in a thriller. But then I think there are other people, you know, from reading sort of reviews and stuff, some people are quite happy to just have a sort of journey, even if it goes somewhere a bit strange, which is, it's surprising that things like that are so subjective, but they seem to be.
Do you read reviews?
It's very true.
Do I read reviews? Is that the question? Well, you know, I don't actually at the moment, because I find them a huge time distraction. But I did when the book came out. I mean, as you'll know, this has been a very strange year, and basically the reviews were the only thing that wasn't cancelled. So it was the only thing that like made the actual book feel like it had actually been published. So if there was a time where I read all of them, good and bad. But yeah, I've stopped because it's just too distracting.
I think I think there's a slight difference here, Alex, because if I were to sit down and read my reviews, it wouldn't take me very long.
No,
I think there's you know what I mean.
But that's not the point, Rob, because it doesn't take me long to read mine either. But it's the constant refreshing of the page in case there's a new review. You could spend hours doing that, even if you don't get any. Right? Like,
I know. I was inferring the wild success of the book was giving you a lot more to wade through than it was. I do. I must admit, Alex. As Chris well knows, I really like a bad review.
Yeah,
I love it. I just
flipping love it, man.
Do you? Oh yeah, of my own book. Yeah, not of other books. No, but I do. Because it only makes me better. It only makes me want to fight harder, and increases the surface tension on the shell or whatever. I get a real buzz out of it. I don't understand it. Do you have what about for yourself? I mean, how do you? Because reviews and bad reaction to books, no matter how great they are, is part and parcel of the gig, isn't it? And no one really knows that when they first get into it, that you are going to get bad reviews. It just is the way it is. How do you approach that?
So I'm really glad you asked me that, you know, because like one of the weird things about this year is because everything's cancelled, all networking opportunities are cancelled. I haven't really had any conversations with other writers about this whole thing. And there is something like uniquely weird about getting a bad review that you kind of want to talk to someone who's been through it about, because there's so much judgment. So the thing is, right, on an intellectual level, like, I knew this is a weird book, right? I can say objectively, Eight Detectives is not a normal book. It doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end in a classic sense. It's got a different structure to that. So I always knew like that wasn't going to work for everyone, and some people just wouldn't get into it. So I was fully prepared for the bad reviews, but just like the level of anger is you sort of you need like coaching to deal with that. Like people who are really angry that you chose to write the book. I
mean, there is hatred out there. Like actual hatred.
Yeah.
Like we sat down to write a story to try and entertain people, and people
hate it. No, people actually think like you've done something wrong by bringing this story into the world. And I sort of tried to think, have I ever reacted that way to a book? And maybe I have. I don't think so. I've never written a review like full of hatred, but yeah, preparing for that. The thing is, like, I feel quite bad at the idea that someone has paid money for my book and then not enjoyed it. Like that makes me feel like it's quite sort of sympathetic towards them. But you get these bad reviews, even if you look on NetGalley, which I guess I don't know if people listening will know, but it's a platform for publishers to give free copies of books to bloggers and things. And so by definition, every review on there, no one's paid for the book. But there's quite a lot of angry people on there as well who've been given free copies and are angry that they've been given free copies.
You guys are supposed to like this. This is what you're supposed to be into. And you're still upset.
I mean, yeah, I guess, again, like, of course, I have no complaints with people not liking the book, and people are entitled to like think it's boring. It's just the sort of the anger that's strange. And yeah, I became a bit of a connoisseur of bad reviews because one thing I did because I knew this was coming, I prepared myself. So I chose a bunch of other books that were publishing around the same time as mine, and I read all their reviews as well, good and bad, to kind of put my own in context. And which is really helpful because this is just every book. I mean, there isn't a book out there that won't have people angry at its existence.
I think there's places like University of East Anglia have the MA there now, don't they? The crime writing MA. Maybe they should have like a module is like dealing with casual bias or something like that. It should be a thing. I won't mention who it was, but this is the sort of, because I find the people behind this fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, like that's right. I'm going to hold up how I feel about this book until I can't take it anymore, and I'm going to splurge on the internet about how angry I am. I got an email from a debut author who I won't mention, whose name I won't mention, but is absolutely brilliant. And the first review they had was from someone who gave it 1 star on Amazon, and it went live on Amazon. First review came in, and it was 1 star because a cat had died in the book,
right.
And this person had got it on the likes of NetGalley, not naming any names, right. and had saved it up for the day of publication, and then as soon as the book was out, pressed send on this absolute takedown because a cat had died.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't legislate this kind of stuff. And trying to describe to this author, please, this is not indicative of what you've done here. You're not about to get 900 angry cat fiend Amazon reviewers. This is just what happens. It just so happens that you've had a really bad, unlucky start.
Yes.
That it was the first one.
It hurts. There's nothing else I can think of where I've been subjected to similar comments. I've probably had like work colleagues that didn't like me and found me difficult to work with, but they don't sit there and tell you these types of things to your face.
I think Am I right in thinking, Chris? One of yours got a 1 star by the same person who gave an inflatable seagull 5 stars or something like
or
that.
tracksuit ones or something. They didn't.
There's just nothing you can do about these people. I just love them so much.
My 1 star didn't even leave words. I had one, and it happened about 4 weeks ago, and they literally just put the 1 star and left. Didn't even slate me.
You see, that's bottling it. That's if you feel that strongly to go on the internet, you've got to leave some wisdom.
I kind of was looking forward to it because Will Carver has been driving it into me that you've not made it until you've got a 1 star. So when I saw it come up, I was like, right, I've done it, and I can go and like see what they hate about it. And then it was literally just there are no words here. I don't even know who it is. So I was a bit frustrated with mine. Speaking of 1 stars, we play a game called 1 Star, which you may be familiar with. A 1 star review, and it's pretty scathing this week, of a book that I've enjoyed recently. So I'll read it to you, and we'll see if you can guess what it is.
Okay.
We always have to point out it's not one of yours.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah, it's always worth pointing out.
Please, I didn't do after that discussion just now. Right. So this is the review. 1 star. Now, if you're stranded at an airport, or dead out of books on a train journey, or completely out of options, perhaps this could appeal to you. Alternatively, if you are a rebellious teenager with a propensity to rebel against anything in 2 legs, the heavily stereotyped protagonist of the novel might appeal to you too. Having read many a brilliant crime, suspense, or action book, I have rarely come across authors and their creations buttered in so much stereotyping that after a while it becomes nauseating, and I find myself waiting for the book to end so that I can move on to a new life in a new universe where said book wasn't penned. The author, to his credit, had an interesting backstory going back to Vietnam, where episodes concerning the tunnel rats could have been explored in more depth, if not to create multifaceted characters, then at least to produce an added source of tension that arises from a destructive past. Think Jacob's Ladder. You would imagine that a middle-aged war veteran functioning out of a homicide department for N number of years would know how the system worked and how to play it to his advantage, instead of having to light up and blow smoke into people's faces every time he can't think of something intelligent to do. And believe me, this happens every 3 to 4 pages.
This is superb. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Massive biofuel takedown. Love it.
There's another paragraph, but do you know what it is from that?
Oh
No.
gosh! So the narrator of the book essentially is a Vietnam War vet.
Yes.
Recent book. Are we allowed to ask clues?
You can ask yes or no questions. This one wasn't, but the series is still going.
Is it by a fiction monster? The series.
It is.
Is it Black Echo by Harry Bosch?
It is.
No, not by Harry Bosch. By Michael Riley.
Yes.
Is it?
Oh, well done.
I've just finished that, and I was absolutely blown away by it. So much so that I ordered the next 3 books in the series. So that review, per take, I feel.
Yeah. I'm afraid to say I've never read a Michael Connolly.
I hadn't until 2 weeks ago.
Good.
Same here.
Yeah.
It was 2 weeks ago. It was like, I was. We were talking about it, Chris, weren't we? Because there's mainstays in the game you've got to follow, isn't there? Really, in a way, it feels like you've got to follow. Not that they demand that; it's just you feel like you want to do that. And I had not touched the Connolly until I touched the poet, and it's transformed.
Oh, really?
It just really was that good. Yeah, really was that good.
And the poet's 99p at the minute on Kindle, so people want to get into him. It's a good time.
Dear me.
So that person's an idiot, but I'm joking.
I'm grateful for all of the reviews, even if they're bad, and I'm grateful for everyone who reads the book on NetGalley. It's fine if you don't like it. It's just it just takes some getting used to. And Yes. Was
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but it's part of the process,
yeah,
isn't it?
it's a privilege.
It's an inevitability.
It's a privilege to be-
Yeah, it is. I like that. It's a privilege. It's a privilege that you read my book and hated it.
Yeah,
It is a privilege. Thank you. I'm taking that, Alex. Forgive me. I used to, Sean will have to take it out, but Alex, I am a 1-star review mug guy. I get my favourite
lovely.
reviews put on mugs.
Oh wow! Well, that's a good idea.
So yeah, my favourite ones get on there. So, but now I'm going to say, instead of that, it's a privilege.
Yeah.
Just leave it at that. It's a privilege.
The last time I checked my 1-star reviews on Goodreads, the one that stood out, someone called the book pretentious, almost masturbatory. which really I like because I know exactly what they mean. And I know exactly where they're coming from. Like the book lingers on its details languorously, and I can totally see why someone would call that masturbating. But
I love how you're the first guest we've had, Alex, who's actually agreed with one of their own 1-star reviews.
yeah, I mean, but is it a bad thing? I don't know.
No, it's not. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
I mean,
Can we just say though that it is clearly not a 1-star book? It is.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I'll fight your corner.
That point is academic. yeah. Even against himself. Yeah.
We usually sort of end with asking what you're reading at the minute. So are you reading anything good?
Yeah, I'm reading The Guest List, which you'll have heard of because it's been huge.
Yes.
By Lucy Foley.
Yeah.
So last Christmas I read The Hunting Party, which was great. And this Christmas I'm reading The Guest List, which I haven't finished yet. I'm slightly more than halfway through, but it's great so far. Very atmospheric.
I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good.
Nice.
What about yourself, Rob?
We were sent a lovely advanced copy of Shiver by Ali Reynolds. And I'm reading that. I've got about 50 pages to go, which is going to get done after the podcast finishes tonight, if the children behave themselves. So I'm going to, I'm already thinking of the quote for what I'm going to send through for this. And sometimes you think like, something that would fit the content a little bit. So I'm going to try it out here now before I send it to the publishers in the morning. So a bit like a novice on a half pipe. I'm really enjoying myself. And now I've been thrown upside down and I've landed on my head and I don't know how to get up. It's superb and I've loved every minute of it. It is going to be absolutely huge, unlike me on a half pipe. And now I'm learning that metaphor doesn't really work for a book review. But either way, Ali Reynolds' Shiver is fantastic. And it is going to be absolutely massive. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next 50 pages, which is why I'm going to sit up and get there get there eventually.
Lovely.
Sounds great.
Are you going to send that review?
You're too kind, Alex.
No, it sounds
Are
great.
Are you going to send that review verbatim, or are you going to change it up a bit?
I'm going to, because I didn't realise quite how hard sticking to the half pipe metaphor was going to be until I started talking about it, and then so I might change it a little bit.
Well, thinking of an interesting way to like blurb someone else's book is another thing they need to teach you on MAs, because that's all right.
Yes, it is.
Really hard.
It is. Yeah. Creative quoting.
Yeah, you use the same sort of handful of adjectives every time, and then once you've used those, where do you go? Yeah, no. So the half pipe metaphor. It sold it to me. It sounds great.
I'm going to stick with it. Because it is. No, it is. It's so fast moving, and so, the book. I'm not a half pipe. I'm talking about Ali Reynolds' shit. It's so fast moving and disorientating, with so many twists and turns, that it does feel like I'm being churned up and spat out. But now I'm down there at the bottom, or nearly at the bottom, I know I'll want to get up and go and do it all over again.
Oh, that word.
I think we did better this time. Yeah, I think we got it this time.
You sounded more confident this time.
Yeah. You see, you always need a second go at things.
Fantastic.
What are you reading, Chris?
I am reading The Black Ice, which I think is the second one in the Connolly series, the Harry Bosch series.
Nice.
Oh,
so this has really got under your skin.
It really has, yeah. I started reading. I'm going to admit something now, and Alex, you might hate me, but I've never read an Agatha Christie, which
wow,
yeah, I've tried a couple of times, and I've always just thought, is it the right time or whatever? So I signed up for this thing called Read Christie, where the Agatha Christie Society suggests a book per month. So I started off with The Hollow. Don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
70 pages in, and it's sort of still introducing characters. And I was like, I just don't know if after like Harry Bosch smashing his way through LA, I'm sort of like, in the mood where you just want high octane, give it to me. So I was enjoying it, but I got to that point where I was like, I need something to happen. And so I've gone on to that, and I might go back. So Michael Connolly is my man at the minute.
What a man.
Sorry, Agatha.
What a man.
And that pretty much takes us up to an hour. And what a lovely hour it's been.
Yeah.
We shall end with saying, please go out and buy Eight Detectives. It is incredibly, not incredibly, incredible. Such a cool, different type of read. So yeah, go and pick it up. Yeah,
I think whatever Alex does, I'm tuning in for. That's it, quite simply. So the stuff that you couldn't really tell us about before, Alex, I'll be there. like a person in an umbrella on like a Black Friday sale outside waiting.
They're all about the metaphors tonight.
I really am, aren't I? Yeah, it's happening. It's good. This bodes well for tomorrow when I have to write this.
We did.
But above all else, it's been a true pleasure to meet you tonight.
Lovely to speak to you both.
Thank you very much. It's been congratulations again on an absolutely amazing year and an amazing day.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
We'll hopefully see you at some stage in the flesh next year.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we look forward to that. But yeah, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
And that is it.
Awesome.
Goodbye, everyone.
Fantastic. Have you pressed stop record?
No,
Chris?
I was going to wait for everyone to say goodbye.
Oh, sorry. Oh, no, it's Alex, it's usually me. There we go again.
And we know Sean's not going to edit this bit out, so we may as well.
He's not going to edit that. Quite obviously, it was me.
I'm going to say goodbye on your behalf. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.